right, viewers, according to reports now, Chinese customs authorities told customs agents this week that Nvidia's H200 artificial intelligence chips are not permitted to enter China. Chinese government officials also summoned domestic technology companies to meetings where they were explicitly instructed not to purchase the chips unless necessary. This comes as the Trump administration gave a formal green light to China-bound sales of Nvidia's second most powerful AI chips, but with some regulations. According to the regulations, Nvidia will need to certify there are enough H200s in the US, while Chinese customers must demonstrate sufficient security procedures and cannot use the chips for military purposes. Joining me now in this discussion is Mithali Nikori, who is an economist from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ms. Nikori, for joining me in this discussion. How do you assess the situation when China says that these imports are not going to be allowed?
So basically what we're finding is that the Chinese government has informed technology companies in China that there is a specific range of H200 chips which are manufactured by Nvidia, and it is not permitting the use of these chips in civilian use. If these are required for defense purposes, then the companies can make a case with the Chinese government and inform them that there is absolutely no alternative.
But Trump has said that these
permitted.
chips will only be provided should they not be used by the military in China. That's a very clear specification that Trump has made, that the chips will only go on sale if China can assure that H200 chips will not be used in Chinese military work.
Exactly, which essentially means that these chips cannot be used in China for any purpose, because while the US is blocking their sale, China has also directed companies not to use them for commercial purposes. So essentially, Chinese companies will now be using locally manufactured chips, will be looking at those for the electronics, semiconductor, as well as AI applications.
All right. Where does US stand to gain from this chip export?
So essentially what the US is trying to block over here is what we term in economics as a transfer of technology. The US believes that, restricting the sale of these chips to Chinese companies will essentially stop the Chinese companies from innovating further, especially in the AI war that is sort of on between China, the US, and other countries. And they feel that, because of the computing power of these chips, the superior computing power of these chips, China will not be able to innovate further on its AI technologies. However, China does have its own, AI chip development infrastructure, which is extensive. At this point in time, very little is known about it in, the mainstream US media and the Western media. However, reports are coming in from Tsinghua University, which actually point to the fact that China has made a lot of progress on its own chip manufacturing infrastructure as well.
Does US stand the risk of these chips being cloned by China?
Of course it does. I mean, but at this point in time, I would like to say that Chinese innovation and Chinese ingenuity has actually reached a point where we may not even want to term it as cloning, but rather, rebuilding and innovating on top of the existing technology that's available. So what China has done very well for many decades is, of course, clone many of the products, but they have come up with efficiency in their own processes. And even here, the fact that the sale of these chips will be restricted means that China will actually end up coming up with its own chips, which may in fact even be more efficient and higher productivity.
All right, sure. Mr. Korea, thank you for your assessment of the situation as of now. We are now going to move ahead, viewers.